Good day. This is Times United. I'm getting ready to stream some creative stream. So this is the image we're going to be working on. And hold on, I just have to tweet. And so I'm going back to editing some medium format film. What I'm really doing is restoring it. I already changed did the coloring, not coloring, but brightness and contrast and editing of the curves and everything. So I'm gonna get started in just a second. Okay. Hold on. It was funny when I was working in the department store. That's what they used to tell me. They'd be like, "Oh, we have to change your settings on your." We had these smartphones that we had to use, and it tells us, what we need to pick up, what has to change the prices, and things like that. Okay, so that's done with. Now I get back to work. Have to get comfortable. Okay, not really comfortable, but I don't know where to put the keyboard. So I went there yesterday, and after the stream, I fixed the settings with the tablet, the Wacom tablet I draw with to do the restores. So it's a lot easier. Pretty much, there was something. One of the settings was to use the Microsoft pen utility, which I don't know why, because it was the driver for the Bamboo tablet, but it was using the pen services from Windows. So that's what was causing the problems with not being able to click and to draw like I am now. Like essentially it was, when I went to draw, it would think I'm doing a hold click, and that was the problem. And then there were other issues where the way it was mapping the pen, the actual tablet, it wasn't mapping to the whole screen. It was only mapping to like a small section. And so that was adding other issues. That was making it kind of harder to navigate. Like I couldn't go down and reach to the bottom of the canvas. I could only do a smaller square in the center of the canvas, and then had to like move it around an extra lot. But I fixed that, so it's going to be a lot easier. And then I got sick yesterday. I think I've been getting sick all week. On Tuesday, I kind of started to notice it, but I thought, oh, maybe I'm just getting nervous because I had the class the next day on Wednesday. But And I was like, it was just like my nervous system felt weird. Not that I felt nervous, it was just my muscles felt weird and kind of felt like, well, just like my nervous system was kind of like almost jittery. And I was like, oh no, am I getting sick? Had like a virus or something. And then Wednesday, I mean, I kind of, if I was getting sick, then I kind of did what you're not supposed to do. And I got a lot of, I drank a ton of caffeine. Like in the morning, I had the espresso. And then after class, 4 hours later, I had another espresso. Then I went and did errands all day. And then at the end of the day, we went to Del Taco. And on purpose, I got Dr. Pepper, which is supposed to have more caffeine than a regular Coke and root beer. A lot of root beers don't have caffeine, but some of them have a small amount of caffeine. But on Wednesday, I was going to do a late night stream, and I was planning to stream till like 3 in the morning. But it didn't work out. I got too tired. And even though I drank all that extra caffeine, which is like, duh, because, I mean, my day started at 7 in the morning that day. And so it was kind of stupid to think I could stream till 3 in the morning, because that was a long day. And it was like very eventful. So just gonna do this. So Wednesday, and that's the other thing about caffeine, is it masks the sickness. It suppresses your immune system. So I'm probably gonna get a lot sicker once my immune system starts kicking in again. Which I hope not. But last night, Thursday night, I really felt it. I was like, oh no. Like, I had to go to bed we went to bed at 9:10. I was just like, I can't make it through the rest of the night. And then, there was something else that happened. Well, I had strange dreams. And then, luckily, before I went to bed, I found out one of my friends is in town. So that was like perfect, because I'm giving her the first printed copy of the Master of Art Collector's Edition. And so, like, I've been holding on to it for like almost a month now. It's like, how am I going to get this to her? Like, I didn't want to. I was okay with mailing it, but I was like, if I see her in person, I'll give it to her that way. But she's in town, so I'm going to drop it off at her mom's house, and then, she can have it, because our schedules are so different that we rarely see each other anymore. That's what I'm doing later today. And then the other good news is that I ordered some prints from my photography store. Even I order through the store. And they came today. And the packaging was really nice. And a little bit of overkill. But I'm really grateful for it, because I just ordered 13 by 19 prints, and they came in like this bigger box, and I was like, this is perfect. So I took the 13 by 19, and it's a gift for my sister. She commissioned me to go take some photos of moss and everything, and then it was very funny, because she was like, oh, once you get the photos you like, I'll pay you for them. Because she has kind of a scholarship fund where she gets a stipend. And she said, I can't pay you, right away. I'll pay you like next year. And so I finally got them. And the photo she liked, she was very picky and wanted specific moss photos. And I was, the ones she ended up picking, I was lucky because what it ended up being was a tree branch fell, and it fell in the driveway, and so we had to call a company to come pick it up. But before it fell off, before they came to pick it up, I went out and I looked at it, and I was like, this is perfect, because the tree branch was just full of all this moss at different angles and everything. And so I just took a ton of photos from it, and then I sent them to her, and she was like, oh, I like, pictures 6 and 8. And so I was like, perfect. So I printed that for her, and I'm going to give it to her for a birthday gift, free of charge. And yeah, so I'm going to be happy with that, because it's like I actually know what to get her this time for her birthday. Because sometimes I get them funny things, and it's like, I'm not sure if they appreciate this. But and so I took the 13 by 19, and I had a frame, and it's kind of harder to frame 13 by 19 images, just because, it is a standard, but not a lot of people print that size. And so the amount of frames you can get for it are limited. And most of the frames you can get for it are like 13 by 19, but they have the matte, which is like a border around the image. It's usually white, but it's like a harder paper, a harder cardboard. It's actually called matte board. And and so the 13 by 19 frames they're exactly 13 by 19, but they're meant to hold, I forgot what the frame size. It's 11 by 14, and you're supposed to put a matte board in it. So in order to frame a 13 by 19 image or print, you have to get like significantly larger and then put the matte board in. And so I had several 13 by 19 frames that I've just been stockpiling, and so I used one of those, and so it's borderless. There's a black border of the actual frame, but there's no what's it called? There's no matte, so it's just a photograph. And usually I like doing the matte, but for this one it came out really good, and I was nervous about it because I was ready to go get another frame if it didn't look good, but it looks really good, so I'm happy with that. And the reason why I didn't really know if it would look good is I printed a whole set of 13 by 19 photos myself. I had a larger format printer, and it has since broke, and like every 2 months I build up the courage to go take it apart and try to fix it, but it still hasn't worked. And part of the problem is that when I fix it, I get refurbished parts for it, so I'm not sure if I'm getting like a refurbished part that still doesn't work or whatnot. But the printer still doesn't work, and so you might be like, why don't you buy another one? And like the prices have gone up considerably. The printer can print, the biggest size it can print is a width of 13 inches. But when I got it, it cost about $150. And if I bought the same exact printer refurbished, they're selling it for around $800, which I don't understand. And so I'm like, I'm not doing that. And they never quite made another printer similar to it because it's a dedicated printer. It's not an all-in-one. It's not a copier, faxer, and scanner. And so that's what I wanted. Because I have a dedicated scanner, I don't need another one. And I already have kind of an office printer that's not really for printing photographs. So that's kind of the dilemma. So this one's going much faster. Anyway, so I printed a whole bunch of 13x9s, but I printed them with a border. I didn't print them borderless. And so in the frame that doesn't have a mat, it kind of looks like it has a fake mat. And it looked okay. I wasn't really happy with it. And so now seeing a full-size 13x9 borderless in this no mat frame, it looked really good. So I'm really happy with that, and I'm getting ready to start selling publicly in different art galleries. So now that I know that that's an option I can print, and I'm happy with the way it looks. And there are programs and plugins you can get for Photoshop that will remove all this dust, supposedly. But I don't trust it. I don't trust it, 1, and 2, I don't want to pay for it. Because I actually enjoy this process of manually restoring the film. Because it combines things I like. It combines drawing, and so it's really tactile. And so it's really relaxing for me. But it's not just relaxing. It's also something I look forward to doing and enjoy. I had the idea that I was going to start a business where I just restore film for like different families. They could bring in their film and I could scan it, and then if they wanted to, I would restore certain images. But I was worried I'd get like so much business I wouldn't be able to do it all. And it's kind of hard to compete with like the online companies that do it, because they have more people and resources. And I'm starting the background music. There we go. Can help us chill out a little bit. Just moving along. Hey. And so when I woke up, this trying to get comfortable for my hand. I don't want it to start cramping. Using a tablet's a little bit different because there's so little resistance. It's like a very smooth surface you're drawing on with the actual tablet, and so when you first do it, you like really grip the pen hard because you want to like control it. So that's kind of like the hard thing to get used to, is like you have to constantly tell yourself to just kind of loosen your grip and not grip the pen so hard, because like the pen will go crazy. So it's just getting your motor skills used to it. And a lot of times, if you make a mistake, nothing that bad happens, and that's thanks to the content aware fill. It's very good at removing the spots. And this is actually a semi-clean image. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of spots down here, but I actually went through this really quickly. Usually and I kind of with the negatives that are worse off, it takes about an hour and a half to fix an image. But these ones have been taking like 20 to 30 minutes, which is good. Just drawing over it. And it was, this day it was really hazy. I mean, as you can see very far. And it kind of adds like a little extra form of depth of field. It's kind of shortens your viewing distance. And as I get closer to the bottom of the image, you'll see everything starts to get higher contrast because it's closer to the camera. And then the actual lens I'm using for this camera, it's a Hasselblad, and it's 35 millimeter. I mean, no, it's 80 millimeter film. It's medium format film. It's technically it's like 79 point something because I shoot in a square format. They're kind of different ratios for different medium format film. But film I shoot the ratio is 1:1. It's a square, and so it's like the similar size. Like when you hear movie people talking about, oh, this film was shot on, like this movie production film was shot on 70 millimeter. It's very close to the same size as a medium format film. It's just the medium format is for still photography, and 70 millimeter is specifically for video production. But a lot of nice things happen with medium format. It's because it's such a larger area of film, you get a wider range of darks and lights than you do with 35 millimeter film or digital. Digital is kind of limiting with the amount of range for color and tones for shooting in black and white. But medium format is like above and beyond. And then because the film is so much larger, you get a lot more details in general because it's just recording so much more data. But then the size of the lens kind of changes as well. Like shooting with an 80 millimeter, you would think that's like medium length telephoto, but it's closer to kind of a standard lens and closer to almost a wide angle. I would say it's like shooting a 28 millimeter in 35 millimeter cameras. So even though it's 80 and it sounds like it's really large, it's actually quite wide. And the 80 millimeter for medium format is kind of like the all-purpose lens. It's similar to the way everyone recommends a 50 millimeter lens for 35. That's kind of the 80 millimeter can do everything really well. And then the lens is a 80 millimeter with aperture of 2.8. And the lens is, everything in this camera is fully mechanical. The camera that I have was built in like 1965. And it's the same type of camera that when the astronauts went to the moon, it's the same kind of issue of camera. It's the same brand that was used to take the photographs of like the Earth and everything from the moon. And so when I got it, it was about $300. But if I had gotten it brand new from like the time period it was built, it would have been about $2,000. But what's nice about this is it's fully mechanical. The shutter, everything, just kind of, you advance the film by winding it up, and it doesn't take any batteries or anything. It's really well built, and so it has. You can do shutter speed of like, I think it's 2 seconds to like 1/500th of a second, and uses no power. And then half the shutter is in the lens, and then it has what's called a leaf shutter, and it's a different way to use a shutter. Most shutters go they go up and down. And if you're moving like left to right, you can get what's called rolling shutter. And that's where your image gets distorted. And it looks kind of, it looks like everything's leaning to the side. And you get that if you're like panning. So if you're moving the camera left to right and following a subject, then you can get the rolling shutter where everything's kind of tilted and it's distorted. But because it has a leaf shutter, the shutter actually, it opens up from the center, and so that really gets rid of the rolling shutter effect. And I don't even think they do leaf shutters in 35 millimeter cameras. They only do the shutter that goes up and down. Yeah, we're getting close to done with this photograph, and it's been a joy. I'm gonna do another photograph after this. I'm just kind of waiting on other people. I have errands to run. There's a whole list of things I was supposed to do Wednesday, but one of the things I did outside the house ended up taking 2.5 hours, and it was really painful. And usually on that one errand, it takes maybe 5 minutes. So everything afterwards was essentially bumped off because it took 2 hours to do. And so now I have to go and do those things today. And we're supposed to get like a snowstorm again. It's like 50 degrees and I'm dying of heat. And they're just going along the bottom. And so this photograph is from Florence, Italy. Okay, and now I'll show you guys the image. So this is it, and then you can see, on the top, the sky it was really foggy. It wasn't just overcast. So that's the distance. So it's not really a wide angle. Again, this is the 50mm lens on medium format, but as you can see, it's not really telephoto either. It's like right in the middle. It's just kind of a standard lens. So I'm going to save, and then I'm going to open up the next image. In Photoshop, it captures weird. Oh, didn't open. And each one of these images is 70 megapixels. When I scanned them in, I could have done 100, but I scan in sets of 3, and so I'd have to scan one frame, one image at a time, and that just wouldn't have been very good, because to do 3 at a time, it took about 10 minutes between each scan. And so if I wanted to do 100 megapixels, it would take 10 minutes per each image. And that month I just went through and scanned all my medium format so I could just start editing it like crazy. Okay, so this is in Rome. This is the Colosseum. And it looks like it's an okay image. There's not a lot of dust. It looks like all the earlier ones just had a lot of dust. This isn't really like dust. I cleaned the film as I was scanning, but it's just kind of older dust that didn't come off when I wiped it. They have solutions you can get, special solutions for film that you can wash it in, but I didn't have any of that. And to be honest, I should have done that, but I didn't have it. And for these, I used to develop all the film myself. 90% of all the film that we're going to see on these projects I developed in the darkroom. And then I do have printed silver gelatin prints, and that means the prints were created in the darkroom. They're not printed with the printer. It never there was never any digital intermediary. It's all printed analog. So I have bigger prints, 11 by 14. And I'm going to start selling those, but I'm only going to sell them locally. And I really like shooting in the dark, not shooting, but developing in the darkroom, because everything's time based, and it's almost like you're playing an instrument. Like you kind of know. You do a lot of testing for the exposure, because when you're printing on paper, you still have to deal with the exposure. You're essentially burning the image from the enlarger into the paper, and so that's why the negative is the opposite. So the darker things in the negative, like the black spots, it blocks out the light from the enlarger, so the paper stays white. And then the dark things in the image are actually like clear on the negative, and that's because the light from the enlarger goes through more, and that kind of burns the image into the paper, and it kind of starts the chemical process. And then you take the paper and you soak it in 3 different chemicals. You go through the developer, and that brings out the image, and each one you have to do it for a certain amount of time, and it just depends on the image. And then you put it in what's called the fixer, and so that takes what the developer did and brings out the image, and then the fixer will make it permanent. Because if you just took it out after using the developer, the paper would react to the sunlight or any light, and then it would be destroyed. So the fixer makes it permanent. And then the last thing is you soak it in water and kind of clear all the chemicals off and everything. So every step of the process is timed. When you actually develop the film is the same way. You put it in this bucket essentially, and when you take the bucket, it's made so that you can pour liquids into the bucket. It's like it's a canister. That's actually what it's called. And so you take the canister and you pour the different chemicals in. And so it's, again, the developer, then the fixer, and then you rinse it out. And it's like, depending on which film you use, and then what the ISO is, that affects how long you use a developer or the fixer. So I have to check my phone. Okay. And so, depending on the type of film you're using, it changes the time. And then when you're enlarging, and that's when you put the film in the enlarger and it shines the light through the negative onto the paper. You do a lot of testing. And what you do is you just take like a sheet of the paper you're developing on, and you just tear it into pieces. And so then you put the enlarger on a section of you just put one piece at a time, and that's how you test out what the exposure is for the enlarger. And the enlarger, it's not like taking a picture where it's a fraction of a second. It's like you have to burn in the image for like 3 or 4 seconds depending on the image. The way I take pictures with film, it's usually within the 3-second mark that I have to expose for with the enlarger. So I like to use a digital counter. The counter is set up directly to the enlarger, and so with the digital one, you set it to like 3.3 seconds or 3.7 seconds, and then you push, start, and then it turns on the enlarger for the time that you set. And so it's a really fun process. And I can print like 30 or 40 images in 2 hours. And so like once I get into the rhythm, it moves really fast. And then I kind of have like an eyeball where it's like, oh, I know this image is going to be around 2 seconds or 4 seconds of exposure. I still do the testing because you don't want to print a large photo and then have it turn out wrong. This one's a little more challenging because there's a lot of things that look like dust, but it's actually not. It's the brick and the shadow. But I'm gonna push on through. And we're about halfway done. So I'll be opening up a third image. And then today I was going to go to the park and take some video and photographs, but it's been canceled again because I have to do the errands. But then I might have to do it Monday because they're supposed to have a snowstorm tomorrow. And yeah, and again, this is for the Sleeping Spring project. I'm just trying to get to as many places as possible before the plant life starts to wake up. Because then I'm going to go back, and once everything starts to come alive, I'm going to take some photographs of them. So we have like before and after pictures. So yeah, not a lot of dust on this image. Just going through. Here's like a hair. And then these images they're around 70 megapixels each one, and when I scan, I scan as a TIFF, TIF, and that's if you have the option. If you don't have the option to shoot in RAW, and most scanners, I don't think there's any scanners that will scan to RAW, but you shouldn't really use JPEG because you can't edit it that much, and JPEG is highly compressed. So if you have the option, you should always scan for photographs and things you're trying to restore. You should always scan to a TIFF format because that's really it's the closest file format to RAW. You can get it uncompressed, and it just has so many extra bits, and it records what's actually there from the scanner, instead of like doing kind of with compression. What it does is it says, oh, these 5 pixels, they're really similar colors, so we're just going to record them all as the same color, even though they're not. There's a range. And so what an uncompressed format and what TIFF does is, like, even though there's like 1 shade difference between these 5 pixels in this area, it's going to record the exact 5 pixels. So even if you have an image that's like the exact same shade of white, the whole thing is white, it will go and record every pixel as what shade of white it is, where if it was compressed, it would just say, okay, the whole image is equal to this color. And so that kind of, it's bigger file sizes, but when you go to edit and change the colors and change the curves and brightness and darkness, it makes a huge difference, because if there's not the data, then it will either bottom out or you get extra grain and things like that. So the final image won't end up looking good. So this is going to be the next image. It's kind of a similar one. I'm going to take a short break. I had to go get a drink of water, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So, this is a slightly different angle than the one before. Again, this is the Colosseum in Rome. And yeah, so I'm gonna get to it. And this already looks like a cleaner image. So I'm just gonna work from the top and move my way down. There's a big spot. And I really enjoy this process. I know it's kind of like some people would find it draining, going through each photograph and finding every speck, but I really enjoy it. This year, this academic school year, I kind of refound that I really enjoyed doing the art process, and so this is like really tactile, and I really enjoy doing this. The program I'm doing for college is I'm becoming a application developer. So it's a lot of programming, and I mean, it was okay. Kind of the biggest problem I had with it was that I was like great at programming, and I didn't really realize that even though I was like so good at it, I didn't enjoy it at all. I mean, I always had my art projects on the side, but I never kind of thought, maybe I should go full time with it. I mean, my parents, they were like, they really wanted me to get a degree in science, and they were like happy with computer science, but they were like, they essentially said, with a mind like yours, you have to go into science, kind of saying like, might be wasted doing just art, which is like my biggest regret, that I didn't listen to that. Kind of what I was thinking. I should have just gone straight into art. One, I would have graduated sooner, and two, I just would have been much happier. And the irony is, like, yes, I'm getting my degree in computer science, but it's well, one, it's taking me a little longer, but two, like, my dad is still kind of grumpy that I didn't go into medicine, and I was like, oh, it's like every time I see him, he's like, oh, I always thought you would have gone into medicine. There was this one time when I said, oh, I'm going to be a kind of like a medical engineer, where I wanted to, and I was like really young when I said this, and I said I wanted to go into creating like robotic limbs for people who were amputees, and I was going to figure out a way to connect it to the brain and everything and get it to work. But, I said that when I was like 12. My dad really latched onto that. He was like, oh, I always thought you were going to go into robotics for medical purposes. And I was like, I was 12 when I said that. And the reason why my dad's like so fixated on me going into the medical field is because he's a doctor. And like, he gets kind of huffy about it. a couple of times he's accused my mom. I was like, "Oh, you've turned my kids against medicine," and she's like, "We never really wanted to be doctors." And so I kind of wish I just, followed my gut and went with photography and video editing. Because, like, that was the thing. People don't have to, kind of suffer in college. People, they study what they like, they enjoy what they study, and that's it. And so it's always been like an uphill battle. And a lot of people don't have to go through that. It's kind of been like a major delayed gratification. But my mom was like, just get your degree in computer science, and then you can do your art, and then it's just a backup plan. So that's kind of that's my mentality now, is if things don't work out, I can try and find a job in the tech field and doing tech support. I'm about a third of the way done now. Just going through. And there's all the people. Now we're 2/3 of the way through. Not a lot of. This was a pretty clean image. It's just really the top that I had to fix. So we're going to move on to the next one. Here's the dot. So a little more here. Here's a lot. So almost done. And I didn't stream it. I'm going to stream. I recorded kind of not. I recorded the screen capture of me editing one of the Sleeping Spring series. It's the one that's coming out next, and it's already up on Patreon for the $2 level. But it's springtime, early spring in Kersley Park in Flint, Michigan, and I was really happy with it. And so now I'm rendering it in 4K. The one on Patreon it's HD, and I wanted to get that out sooner so it can have a longer early access. And to do it in 4K, I ran into this problem of hard drive space. What I do is I render out to an uncompressed format, and then I do a high quality encode to the final codec, and that just means that I get the highest possible encode from the edit. But that means that because it's close to uncompressed format when it first exports, it's huge. Just doing the HD export, it took like 900 gigabytes, and so I was like, that's not going to work for the 4K. So I didn't want to export a compressed version of the 4K, and which would save the file space. But so I split it up into chunks, and so the program's going to export a quarter of the project each time, and then it's going to export, for the first quarter it's going to export it as uncompressed, and it's going to encode it, and so that will be considerably smaller, and then we'll go on to the next project and export it in uncompressed and then compress it. And so this way I don't have to worry about it running out of hard drive space, because if it runs out of hard drive space while it's exporting, it has to start the project over completely. So this is kind of like the fail-safe. I'm really happy I started it. I started it Wednesday evening, and on Thursday it was already done with the first quarter, which is great. The HD version, the whole thing, took close to it took like 4 days to render and encode the whole thing, and the project is an hour and 30 minutes, where probably 60 to 65% of it is animation. And it's not only animation, it's animation with larger assets. They're about 30 megapixels, 30 megapixel assets. And so the 4K, of course, is going to take longer, but with the HD, it took about a second. It was like 1.2 seconds per frame. And then with the 4K, it's taking about 3 seconds per frame. So it's almost 3 times slower. But it's going to be really high quality and really good 4K. Okay, so this is the image. Everything's fixed. And I'm going to save it. And move on to the next one. Okay, so this is some night photography, and it's in Florence, Italy. And Here we go. This image already looks like it has some problems. Yeah. So you're just gonna get rid of these specs. It's just, there's a lot of, it almost looks like they're kind of scratches in the film, but it's probably just kind of dirt from the scanner. And then it is the Creative Friday stream. So after this, I'm gonna do a rerun of all the live streams so far this week, and then the produced content, which is it's just content that's been edited and things like that, different animation files. So Project Newfoundland, which is it's a documentary I made, and then that's still coming out. There's gonna be about 20 episodes. And so right now what's public is episode 1 and 2. Patreon has the 3rd episode, and it's going to be exclusive to Patreon for the rest of the month. Project Newfoundland releases 1 episode a month, and it goes to Patreon for a month before it comes public. And then live to tape, those episodes of Storytime are going to be coming out. What's interesting with live to tape is I'm going to start a new series. It's going to be very similar. It's going to be like the dashboard cam driving, time-lapse photography, but instead of storytelling, I'm going to make it like a relaxing video to watch, kind of like something you can put on if you want like a screensaver or just want to relax and watch a travel video. But instead of being 8 to 12 minutes long, I'm going to combine the whole section of driving. And so the camera I used was the GoPro Hero 2, and it records in 30-minute chunks. And so I'm actually going to go and get each chunk and combine them. So it's not going to be like 4 hours long, but it's going to be longer. And so because it's time lapse, it's sped up and slowed down. So each video file, after being animated and the time lapse effect is complete, they're around maybe 12 to 15 minutes long. And then let's just say 15. And then each drive lapse I record, there's 4 video files at a time. So it's going to be like an hour relaxation time lapse, dashboard cam, traveling through the landscape. And it's just it's like the open road, going through mountains and desert and everything. So right now, it started in Northern California. It kind of went up the Farm Belt, and then it went to Northern California, and then the current episode has crossed into Oregon. So there are a lot of beautiful mountain ranges and going through the forest. And then Live to Tape was the first channel, first one of my channels to release 3D and then the fixed view VR. And so that's just VR that there's no head tracking, but it's like sitting in like the perfect seat of a theater and having a large screen in front of you. And the VR is it's only for smartphone VR. So if you get like the VR goggles, it works with most smartphones. And you don't have to do anything special. You don't have to run it in an app. You just have to play the YouTube video. And so Live to Tape streaming, and then the first 2 episodes of the Sleeping Spring series is going to come out. Yeah, one of them's the video, and then the other is the Flotation, which is the animated slideshow. I just call it Flotation because it's photography and animation combined. And so that will be coming out too later during the Krita stream. And it's all produced content, and so that's why it runs as a rerun. It's not edited live. It's not created live. Some people were getting angry about that. But it's like if you went to see a Star Wars movie and then got upset that they didn't do it live. It's like, no, these effects and projects the animation you can't do live. And so I think that I'm gonna, after I finish this one, we're gonna look at the next photograph. And I might start it, but I might not. So we're about 2/3 of the way done. And this is a faster project. So we're getting almost done. Finishing this up. And then yeah, we'll check out the other photograph, and I'm probably not going to start it. I'm just going to look at it, and then it's going to start the marathon of all the creative content from quotations and live to tape. So almost done. Okay, and it's finished. Then we'll look at it. So that's the final thing. I see 2 dots. Let's go and fix them. That can go. And this one. There we go. Whoops. Hit myself in the face. Okay, so that's the final image. And then I'll show you the next one we're going to work on. This one is, it's also in Florence. This is inside one of the museums. I believe this photograph was taken in nighttime. That's why it looks so dark. And we'll just look around it. It's a little bit blurry. Unfortunately, it was handheld. But so there's a little bit to do. But yeah, I'll start that tomorrow probably. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. I'm gonna start the Friday creative stream after this, where it is more produced content. It's actual video projects and short films and the documentaries. And so if you want to stay tuned, that's coming up next in like a second. So thanks for coming out. I'm going to do a creative stream tomorrow, late morning, early afternoon. It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be editing film and then working on I have to actually proof the Sleeping Springs short film, which isn't short. It's about an hour and 10 minutes. And if there's any changes, I'll do the changes live on Twitch. So thanks for coming out. See you tomorrow.